Designing with sequence diagrams. Sequence diagrams used to explain object interactions and document design decisions. Document inputs to and outputs from system for single use case or scenario. Capture interactions between system and external world as represented by actors. Inputs are messages from actor to system. Outputs are return messages showing data. Annotated system sequence diagrams. For the lookup item availability use case. Pinapakita sa diagram na to yung clerk or the actor na nag-i-interact sa systems wherein mag-input siya ng message and the object lifeline showing the sequence of messages top to bottom. Si system, isa-show niya yung sequence ng message and i-output niya to pabalik dun sa clerk. First cut sequence diagrams. Start with elements from SSD. Replace system object with use case controller. Add other objects to be included in use case. Select input message from the use case. Add all objects that must collaborate. Determine other messages to be sent. Which object is source and destination of each messages. These are the objects included in lookup item availability. First is availability handler, catalog, product item, catalog product, inventory, and also the actor or the clerk inquiring on the system. These are the guidelines for sequence diagram development for use case. Take each input message and determine internal messages that result from that input. For that message, determine its objective. Needed information, class destination, class source, and objects created as a result. Double check for all required classes. Flesh out components for each message. Iteration, guard condition, past parameters, return values. In that diagram, shows that first, you must determine who the actor of this use case is. In the diagram example, the actor is the clerk, which inquiring the catalog ID, product ID, and size. Second, you must take each input message and determine all the internal messages that result from that output. And for each message, determine its objective. After that, you must flesh out the components for each message, like looping situation, optional situation, alternative situation, return values, and past parameters. After that, input the message on each controller. And last, the sales order object takes responsibility to save itself to the database based on the saved input message.
I'm Leonardo Marco Jr. and I'm here to refer first about the use case diagram. So let's start. Imagine that we are all software engineers and we are assigned to a new project. As a software engineer, we will not going to start from coding. We will follow the system development lifecycle. But to make it a success, we have to choose the best software development methodology. Next, we are now going to design the system. Take note that designing system is about making wireframe or prototype designing, interface design and color combination. It's about visualizing internal system, or other words, It is a blueprint. It's about making solution for clients' requirements and a process wherein design can be drawn in project-oriented view. This is where the use case diagram being introduced. Use case diagram shows the functionality of a system from the user's perspective. For example, if you want to make a new app and you will try to explain it, there will be possibility that the listener does not understand how they will interact with the app, so you will use the use case and the diagram to show the app. It has a lot of details but is a grateful way to communicate complex ideas in purely basic way. Each use case is a usually an active, your own non-phase. The use case diagram is usually to current system as well as proceed system. Now, how to use drawing use case diagram. First, we have to list out of use case and identify the actor. Second, prioritize cases and focus from the top of the list. Lastly, development each of the priority cases starting with the writing and description for each. There are four different elements of the use case diagram. First is the system wherein this is the object of developing. It could be application, software, business process, and many more. The system representative a rectangle shape where the system name is written. The rectangle shape helps to define the overall scope of the system. Second is the actor within it is represented by human image. An actor is anymore used to perform a certain function in the system. Actors may be someone or something that can be person, an organization, and other system. There are two types of actors. The primary actors who initiate the use of the system and the secondary actors is the more on to the reaction. To make it simple, primary actors request something to the system while secondary actors respond to primary actor. Third element is the use case wherein it is all the functionality that the system does. In other words, it is the list of the tasks which the system can perform. Last element is relationship. This is where we draw a solid line between actors and the use case to show the relation of the two. Now, let's talk about the use case realization with sequence diagram. This is where we will explain the process obliterating the detailed design of the use case with interaction diagram. This is more complex because there are different objects included in the system, how interact. So we will start with system sequence diagram. Within there is a clerk being internal actor interacts with the system, input message, the middle, the return value outputs message, the system object lifeline, presenting timeline for the object. Now, we will add other object in the system. These are product controller, product item, inventory item. We will replace the system with controller, and this will going to be view layer class, while product and inventory item will be the domain object. Now here, we will see the first cut sequence diagram. It includes the actor, input, and output message. The view layer class, the domain object, a lifestyle, and the appearance of the activation lifeline. Take note that we will not arrive in the first cut if we change the system diagram in the first part.
Developing a multi-layer design. So, in developing a multi-layer design, merong tatlong steps. Una, first cut sequence diagram. Pangalawa, add data access layer. Pangatlo, add view layer. Sa first cut sequence diagram, ito yung gumagamit ng case controller plus classes in domain layer. Sa add data access layer naman, ito yung mga design for data access classes for separate database interaction. Sa add view layer naman, ito yung design for UI classes. Approaches to data access layer. So dito merong dalawang approach. Yung first approach is controller instantiate new customer and then new instance as data access class to populate its attribute from the database. So dito yung controller yung gumagawa ng customer object and then yung mga attributes and values is kukunin ng data access class sa database. Sa pangalawang approach naman, controller as data access class to instantiate new customer. So baliktad naman dito, yung data access class yung gumagawa ng customer object and yung mga values naman ibibigay niya rin sa customer constructor. Adding data access layer for lookup item availability use case. So dito, yung clerk ay magre-request ng catalog ID and product ID sizes, tapos yung mga requested information na yan dadaan siya sa availability handler and catalog, product item, and all the way to inventory item. And after makuha yung mga information, babalik ulit siya sa catalog, product ID, availability handler, and then papunta sa clerk. Adding data access layer for maintain product information use case. So, dito naman, yung na-request is mga existing product ID, vendor, gender, desk, yan. Dadaan naman siya sa product controller, product item, inventory item. Then, yun, after makuha yung mga information, babalik ulit siya sa product item, product ID, product controller, and then back to the clerk.
Here the session designing the view layer. Add UI forms for web page between actor and controller for each use case. Minimize business logic attached to a form. Some use cases requires only one form, yung iba naman ay nagre-require ng multiple forms and dialog boxes. View layer design is focused on high-level sequence of forms and pages called dialog. The sequence has a product query form added for lookup item availability use case. First ay mag-i-import ang clerk ng catalog ID, product ID at size. Yun yung product query. Next naman ay availability handler to get the catalog ID, catalog DA to get catalog information. The next one ay product DA to get the price, quantity of the product, catalog and product ID, and the description. Next namin nilagay mo sa all inventory items kapag kompleto. Kapag kompleto ng information niya, ibabalik niya sa clerk. Yun yung na-inquire. Next one ay product window and message window for maintain product information use case. Ganun din, nag-request din ang clerk mag-description ng each product ID and product window. Next one ay product controller existing product being featured for existing game, up to create product ID, vendor, gender, and description. Pagtapos nun, pupunta rin sa inventory item, inventory being, at isa-save na ang lahat ng information pabalik din sa clerk.
Designing with communication diagrams. Communication diagrams and sequence diagrams. Pareha silang interaction diagrams. Nakakapag-capture din sila ng same information, pati ang process ng designing. Sa model use, sequence diagram, gumagamit lang siya ng case descriptions and dialogues. Sa communication diagram naman ay gumagamit lang siya ng nag-e-emphasize siya ng coupling or yung link between sa participant and the object. So, ito yung symbol ng communication diagram. Una is yung actor. Actor is yung nagbibigay ng initial message. Pangalawa is yung arrow. Yung arrow naman ay link between sa symbol at actor. Siya yung way para sa message. At yung pangatlo is yung object. Yung object na nagre-receive at nagsisend din ng message. So, sa diagram na ito, papakita ko sa inyo kung paano siya gumagana. Yung actor is nagbigay ng first message sa object. So, yung object 1 na-receive yung message at after niyang ma-receive yung message, magbibigay siya ng message papunta kay object 2. At si object 2 naman magbibigay ng response at magsisend ng message papunta kay object. At si object 1 naman ibabalik niya yung final response ni object 2 papunta kay actor. Communication diagram for lookup item availability. So si clerk nag-send ng message na sort the data or desk price quantity. So papunta kay availability handler. And then availability handler naman nagbigay ng message papunta kay catalog. At si catalog naman ang gagawin niya is kukuha ng description na galing kay product item at kukunin niya yung price na catalog product. After nun, pupunta siya kay product item para si product item ay magbibigay ng message na quantity or quantity on hand papunta sa inventory item. Lookup item availability. Use case using iconic symbol. So, si clerk nagbigay ng message na inquire papunta kay product query. So, si product nagbigay naman ng message ng inquire on item papunta kay availability handler na symbol ay control, which is tagapamagitan sa boundary at entity. So, si availability handler nag-send ng initial inquiry papunta kay catalog para basahin. So, ang ginawa naman, tapos nun, pumunta sa initial product papunta kay entity ng product item. After nun, mapunta sa product item, magbibigay siya ng message papuntang initial inventory kay inventory item. And then, mag-read inventory or self message papunta kay inventory. Then again, babalik tayo kay availability handler since siya yung tagapamagitan sa dalawa. After nun, pupunta tayo magsisend siya ng si availability handler ng message ng item inquiry punta kay catalog. Then, ang gagawin naman ni catalog is magbibigay ng description papunta kay catalog product. At after nun, babalik tayo kay catalog para kunin yung price and quantity. Updating the design class diagram. Class diagrams developed for each layer. So, una dito is yung bagong class for new layer tsaka data access layer. Then, sumunod is yung new class para sa domain layer para magamit sa case controllers. Then, next is sequence diagrams message para ma-add sa mga methods. Una dito is yung constructor methods. Then sumunod is yung data and get set method. Tapos use case specific methods.
Dito naman sa figure na to, design class with method signatures for the product item class. Dito sa table na to, yung table ng product item, meron siyang laman na product ID na naka-primary key, vendor, gender, and description. Tapos sa baba niya doon nakalagay yung mga data types. Sa description, naka-string siya. Tapos yung quantity, naka-integer. Dito si vendor dapat naka-character yan. Tapos yung product ID naka-string. Naka-integer. This figure naman pinapakita niya na yung updated design class diagram for the domain layer. Yung parang flow niya or process. Diyan na pinapakita. Package diagram is structuring the major components. Si package diagram naman siya yung nagsisimplify ng mga class diagram. Pwede ka rin gumawa ng group classes into package. Tapos siya yung collection of logical related UML. Yung UML naman stands for Unified Modeling Language. High-level diagram in UML to associate classes of related groups. Identifies major components of a system and dependencies. Determine the final program partition for each layer. View, domain, or data access. Can divide system into subsystem and show nesting within packages. Ito naman figure na to yung partial design of 3-layer package diagram for RMO. Pinapakita dito yung view layer, domain layer, and data access. Sa view layer, nakikita nyo si product query, tas naka-indicate sa kanya. Naka-indicate papunta sa catalog. Tapos si order window naka-ano naman sa order. Tas yung item window naka-order item. Tapos punta naman tayo sa domain layer. Yung buong domain layer, naka-access siya sa buong data access layer. Pati na yung view layer, naka-access rin siya sa data access layer. Kasi yung data access layer, ay yung parang database siya yung database. Nandun lahat ng information, lahat ng data na nakapaloob dun sa buong system. Sa tingin ko, online ordering system to eh. Ito naman figure na to, RMO subsystem package. Dito na pinapakita yung view layer class. Responsible naman siya sa display electronic forms and reports. Capture such input events as clicks, rollover, and key entries. Magdi-display siya ng data fields, accept input data, edit and validate input data, forward input data to the domain layer classes, tapos nag-start and shutdown na siya ng system. Dito na pinapakita sa domain layer, create problem domain, persistent class. Process all business rules with appropriate logic. Prepare persistent classes for storage to the database. Dito na pinapakita sa data access layer class. Responsible naman siya sa establish and maintain connection to the database. Contain all SQL statement. Process result sets into appropriate domain object. Disconnect gracefully from the database. Implementation issues for 3-layer design. Construct system with programming. Java or VB.NET or C#.NET. Yung Java, ginagamit rin siya pang backend. Si VB.NET, you can create application that are fully object-oriented. Tapos si C# naman, general purpose programming language. Tapos ito naman yung mga IDE tool na example. Visual Studio, Rational Application Developer, tsaka JBuilder. Si Visual Studio, ginagamit rin siya para makapag-construct. Si Rational Application Developer, ayan, gumawa niyan yung mga yung IBM na company. Tapos yung JBuilder stands for, para sa mga Java program. Integration with user interface design, database design, and network design. Ito yung kalamitan na nakikita, for example, yung client, dun yung client side, ayun yun. Use object responsibility to define program responsibilities for each layer. Nakikita mo dyan, mayroong view layer, domain layer, and data access layer.